am Deidre Peterson. I'm the President and CEO of the Mason County Chamber of Commerce. It's my pleasure today on behalf of the Chamber, the EDC, and North Mason Chamber to be here today. I would like to take a moment and thank our venue today, Shelton Yacht Club, for providing the space for us, as well as City of Shelton for their generous support of today's event. So at this time, I would invite City Manager Jeff Knighton up to make a few remarks.
Glad I got applause before I started talking. Welcome everybody. We're pleased to be able to co-sponsor this event. It's very important for us, and we're happy to do it every year. Looking forward to hearing from our representative and our new senator, and hearing about the progress that we will make throughout the community for 2023. Can't believe it's 2023 already either. We appreciate everybody attending, and I hope you have a good breakfast, and looking forward to the remarks.
I would also be remiss if I didn't take a moment to acknowledge the leaders of the organizations who are hosting today's event, all of these presenting partners. So if you're a board member of either chamber, the EDC, or a city council member, would you please stand and be recognized? Thank you so much. And Jennifer Baria, at this point, I'll turn it over to you to kick off our program.
Kick it off. We know that it's important to have access to your local officials. We're proud to convene the state legislators before the start of this year's legislative session. This morning, we'll hear from Senator Drew MacEwen and Representative Travis Couture. Representative Dan Griffey had also planned to attend today, but he called in sick. He did, however, provide a short message, which I'll share with you right now. Thank you so much for joining the Chambers and EDC this morning for our Legislative Sendoff. I truly enjoy working for you. I love that you are engaged and wanting to do great things for our community. I'm unable to join you this morning due to the nasty flu bug. I hope you appreciate me not sharing that all with you. I am available over the phone or email. You can reach me on my cell phone at the Capitol office or via email. As always, I look forward to working with each of you. I am currently serving on transportation, local government, and public safety. It has a new name this year. But know that any concerns that you have involving state government, I am happy to help you with or point you to the appropriate resource. Let's make 2023 an amazing year in Washington State. Now to introduce our legislators, Pam Bowles. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Pam Bowles with the North Mason Chamber of Commerce and the President and CEO there. I've been in that position for 2.5 years, though for probably the first year and a half we were all kind of in seclusion. But I know many of you here, and it's great to see you all here this morning. So to kick us off, to introduce, hi, behind the flag, we're going to start with Senator Drew MacEwen and do a little introduction about them. So those of you that don't know, Senator Drew MacEwen most recently served as a member of the House Republican leadership team, where he was assistant floor leader and the ranking member of the Commerce and Gaming Committee, and the assistant ranking member of the House Appropriations Committee. In the House, he also served as a joint committee on Veterans and Military Affairs and the Joint Task Force on Economic Resilience of Maritime and Manufacturing in Washington. That's a lot. As you know by now, Senator MacEwen has been elected to fill the seat vacated by longtime Senator Tim Shelton. Drew served in the United States Navy for 6 years. He is a graduate of the Nuclear Propulsion Program and holds a Bachelor of Science degree in the from Excelsior College. He is the founder and president of the investment group Falcon Financial Incorporated and is the managing partner of the Mountain Lake Capital. Having also invested in other Mason and Kitsap County businesses, Drew is active in many community organizations, including Rotary, Love Inc., and the past president of the Shelton Mason County Chamber of Commerce. Senator Drew MacEwen. And now to introduce our newest addition to the legislation delegation is Representative Travis Couture. Earning a seat vacated by Representative MacEwen as he moved up into senator. Travis is a U.S. Navy veteran and is currently the program manager for Lockheed Martin at Naval Submarine Base Bangor. He earned an MBA and BA in organizational leadership for Brandman University. He has volunteered to several local organizations, including the United Way, Kiwanis, Habitat for Humanity, and North Mason Schools. Yay, Bulldogs. And is a supporter of Turning Point Survivor Advocacy Center and the CareNet. Travis has been politically active in the 35th District for some years now and is the former chairman of the Mason County Republican Party. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen. Who you care to make this opening? Who you care to? Would you care to make an opening remark? It's early, folks. Senator MacEwen.
Thank you. Thanks for having us here today. I've always enjoyed doing this, and cannot believe this is the 11th time. 10 years in the House went like that, and I felt like I was still new when I left. So it's amazing how much you learn and how much you still have to learn, especially in the context of what was a $65 billion budget last year. So we won't take a lot of time here in opening this up, other than just to thank you for being here. Look forward to your questions and comments, and I want to welcome Travis and earning my seat, and I look forward to serving with him. Sorry Dan couldn't be here today. I know he's been down under for the last week or so, but you've got a good delegation that works hard, and I gotta say it's weird standing here without Tim. We worked well together for the last 10 years, and he gave me a lot of advice through the years up until just a week ago, last time we talked, and it's an honor to fill those shoes, and I look forward to it, and want to be an open door to all of you. So thanks for having us here this morning, and look forward to the rest of the program. Travis.
All right. Well, new on the block, so I thought that after the naive me thought that after the campaign things might slow down a little bit. Well, that was false. They just kind of tripled. So since then, I've got the pleasure to, if I didn't meet you before, I got to meet many people in this room and kind of hear all your different concerns and needs. So that's really important to me. You might already know what committees Dan and Drew have, but since I'm new, I'll just tell you right now, I'm on capital budget, I'm on environment and energy, and what used to be called children, youth, and families, where I'm the assistant ranking member, and now that's called human services, youth, and early learning. They changed a lot of the names of the committees, so if you get a little confused at first, that's why. I'm just really proud that we have such like a vibrant community that really cares about helping each other out, and that I could be a part of that is really an honor. And I feel like I'm in really good hands, even being a freshman. Drew's been around the place for 10 years, and even though it kind of feels like some big shoes to fill, I always have Dan and Drew to lean on, and that's a blessing because some other districts have maybe 2-3 freshmen. And so I feel pretty lucky there. And I'm also not a stranger to Tim Sheldon because he seems to call me every week to fill me in on little tips and tricks, so I appreciate that as well. Yeah, I'll wrap it up there.
Wonderful. So in an effort to maximize today's program, we have provided our legislators with handouts of our organizational agendas, as well as the Community and Economic Development Strategies list. Some of you know that is the SEDS list. Copies will be available for any of you who wish to have that after the meeting. Just pick it up at the table on your way out. But we'd like to really focus this morning on conversation with our delegation. So following the panel discussion, there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions. Please be ready with business and economic development related questions that you might like to ask of our legislators. So at this point, we will start things off by asking you gentlemen to give us your take on the 2022 short session and share any successes or challenges that you feel came out of that. Drew?
Thanks. The short session is designed to make course corrections pretty much from the previous long session, especially budgetary issues. It was also the first time that we kind of started to migrate back into the Capitol building, which posed its own challenges last year with a number of members had never been in there that had been elected in 2020. And it's very different to be in there than sitting behind a computer screen, and I think it's better when we are there. I thought it ironic that we couldn't figure out how to put 98 people in the largest building in Olympia, but you can turn around and go to Costco and be with 400 of your closest friends. But at any rate, looking back on this short session, we went into it with a tremendous surplus of $15 billion. Put that in context, when I was elected, which is the same year as the governor in 2012, our state budget was $32 billion. And fast forward 10 years later, and we had a surplus of $15 billion on a $65 billion budget. And here we are, we were seeing the supply chain issues, inflation was kicking in, energy prices were high, and we're starting to see constraints in the economy. And instead of providing tax relief or paying down some of our liabilities, instead spending was increased by that entire $15 billion, and I thought that was the wrong direction to go. And we find ourselves in a similar situation now as we enter the new biennium, have a new budget to do. So I don't think 2022 did a great job in setting us up for success going into this year from a budget standpoint. We've got a lot of work to do. Travis touched on his committees. I failed to mention that. I was number 2 Republican on appropriations for the last 8 years, and had a good working relationship on both sides, and was able to do a number of things there that otherwise would not have been able to. But I chose, in going to the Senate, to step away from that. After 8 years of Friday nights and Saturdays doing the budget, I needed a break from it, and so I stepped away and didn't. I could have gone into Ways and Means, but chose not to, and instead I'm going to focus on transportation. Tim was on that committee. It's a natural slide in there, and we've got, as you know, some serious infrastructure issues in this district that need to be addressed. So went that route. So while I've moved away from the operating budget, I'm going to still be actively involved in it, and we'll move forward from there. But I don't see there weren't landmark things that happened out of the 2022 session other than we failed or missed opportunities to set us up for success. And that's how I would look at this past short session.
Thank you. Now, Representative Couture, I know you hadn't yet been elected to serve the people, but you obviously were tracking the session and things that were going. Are there any thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, I don't know if I have much more to add on top of what Drew already said, but we had a $65 billion budget. The governor's now requesting roughly a $70 billion budget, and we have some kind of liabilities coming up in the future, like a 6-year inflation adjustment for McCleary, and a potential Wacayacum suit for school construction, and one-time COVID programs that will then have to potentially be reauthorized and paid for again. And so when you start to kind of add up those numbers, it's not a stretch to believe that we could potentially in the near future have a $100 billion budget. And so the spending does get a little unsustainable, and it feels harsh because we have so many, look at our list, we have so many needs in our communities. And so I know that me and Dan and Drew are totally committed to fighting for rural communities that sometimes get kicked down the list on some of these projects and some of the things that we need. We have all the same problems as the urban communities, but sometimes just not the resources to tackle those problems. And so that's something I'm really going to be focusing on.
Thank you. So that being said, now that we look ahead to the 2023 long 105-day session, what issues do you expect to take center stage? What are the bills we should be watching? And how can the business community engage in this process? Senator MacEwen?
Yeah, thanks. And then real quick, which delves into the other committees that I'm on, then I'm the ranking member. I'm taking over energy, environment, and technology on the Republican side in the Senate, which has got no shortage of issues before us. The Climate Commitment Act, whether you agree with it or not, was implemented. or was passed, I should say. We now are tasked with the implementation of it. And I'm just taking the viewpoint that we need to recognize the free market in doing that and hold to the 30-year commitment of going carbon neutral in this state. But we need to do it in a manner that doesn't destroy our economy and allows for new technologies to come on board. That's going to be one of the major things before that committee. And then I'm also on Commerce and Labor and Business and Financial Services. So those are the other ones that round out. But yeah, going into this year, it's the budget that will be negotiated. Spending's increased another 8%. I don't know if your households have increased yours 8% going into this year, or if you doubled your income in the last 10 years like the state did, but that's what's going on at the state level. And I think the other big issue that's floating around out there is it continues to be, addressing some of the major steps that were taken, in my view, wrong steps when it came to law enforcement. And I think you're starting to see some bipartisan coalitions coming together that recognize that was not, those laws that were passed were not the right answer. And I don't think there's going to be a magical solution that happens this session, but sometimes these things take time. And I think again that there's movement in the right direction in reforming those issues. We've seen a dramatic increase in property crimes just in this county, myself included, and that's a concern, and that affects business. We've also got to hold the line on the tax and regulatory side. I would much rather have the argument on, what is the appropriate level as opposed to constantly changing it. And if you look at what's happened over the last few years, for those of you in business, when the ball is constantly being moved and that goalpost is being moved, it's very hard for you to plan and how to adapt your business. So let's hold the line and let's move forward so that you can plan and you can execute your strategies. We've got enough challenges before us. Let's not make any bones about it. We're not going to, when I say we, this delegation is not going to be able to make major policy changes in the makeup of this legislature. That's just not reality. But what is reality is we can work behind the scenes to continue to get funding for infrastructure projects in this community, which I'm very proud to have done over the years. And that has a major impact on all of us and sets us up for development. We've done a number of things, whether it's sewer projects or getting rid of the latecomers fee up on 101. We're opening the doors to this community to be able to grow, and we've got to continue to do that while working within the constraints that are before us in the legislature. So with that, I'll give it to Travis, and I'll look forward to your questions.
Yeah, like I previously mentioned, I'm on Capital Budget Committee. So if you don't know, there's 3 budgets. There's the operating budget, capital budget, and transportation budget. And even though we talked about the increase of spending in the operating budget, the difference in the capital budget is, previously we had like $6 billion in the capital budget, and now it's going to be more like $4 billion. And so there has been expect a reduction in the capital budget, but I still think we could do a lot of great things. One thing that I realized right away, there's actually a state, forget what it is, but there's a state website that you could look up capital budget projects and by district. And as you scroll through the districts, you see a few. Yeah, LEAP. It's called LEAP. And myself and many others were pretty amazed with the work Dan and Drew had done, because the list of capital budget projects for the 35th district was sometimes 2 or 3 times that of other districts. So they've been really putting in the work and utilizing the best that they can out of the capital budget to bring money home to build critical infrastructure, because we need infrastructure so we can have more housing. And I think, we'll go into it in a little bit, but housing is going to be a big thing this session. Mental health will be probably a big thing. But what comes with that, especially being on environment and energy, is do we have the power grid? Do we have the infrastructure? Are PUDs set up for success, and many other different things? So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Representative Couture, thank you for setting that up so nicely, because my next question is to ask you all about negotiating the new biennial budget and what projects, particularly local projects, might be funded or supported. What can you share about that process?
Oh, now you take Kevin off, he's going to leave. The capital budget is one of the most friendly budgets actually to do, and I've been on and off of that for a number of years, but it's, it is the infrastructure of the state, and there's a pretty wide recognition amongst both chambers and both parties that you don't mess with other people's community requests, and that's up to a delegation to determine. And then you have other things such as, what the Shelton Yacht Club is working on, with this major restoration of the bay here, and those fall under different categories that are ranked to remove politics from them because they're often much more expensive than local projects. And so this ranking happens, and then budget writers will establish a funding level, draw a line, and what's above it gets funded, what's below it does not. And that's also true with a lot of higher education projects as well. But speaking locally, for me on the transportation budget, it's getting the Belfair bypass, freight corridor, whatever you want to call it, getting that back on track. I was disappointed that the governor essentially has put it to a full stop. That's a waste of previous resources and a failed recognition of how vital it is for this region. It's an issue for Kitsap, it's an issue for Mason, and our mobility. So I'll be working hard to do that, and we'll continue to move the ball forward. I think it's important that you develop relationships, again, in both chambers and on both sides of the aisle, and so that you can lean on those. And I'll continue to do that. I've got good relations through the years that I've developed, and I look forward to working with those to ensure our voices are heard at the state level and getting the necessary funding. It doesn't all happen at once. One of the things that I've learned to do very early on when I was on the capital budget, and Troy Nichols was actually our staffer at the time, but he probably taught me this, and that's to create your own bow wave. So if you've got a major project, get the first couple $100,000 going, because then you turn around the next biennium and say, well, we've already spent this, we've got to go to this now. And so it's doing things like that that are critical to getting major projects done. So look forward to it. Thanks.
Yeah, I did want to mention that throughout our rural districts and rural communities, like we have in my opinion, a big problem with school construction. Often you have to pass bonds, and it's a larger vote to pass those bonds, and especially in kind of harder economic times with higher inflation, it gets even harder to pass that stuff. And so what results is we have communities not just here in Mason but across the 35th district where kids are still in portable units for years and years. That's not the shining star example of an education system that we want in our state. And I think that one of the things that I'll be interested in working on is finding a way to update formulas or find some way to fix SCAP or something like that, so that we can find ways to help out our rural communities who have a hard time passing bonds, so that we can construct better and more modern school facilities for our students. And I already kind of mentioned the infrastructure. I think it's critical that, talking with, I forget where she is, Kristen, we had a great conversation about some projects PUD1 is doing and how that helps people like Hood Canal Communications put in broadband when they open up the ditch, and then putting in those water and power lines helps make that property available so that we can build more housing. And so sometimes one project affects multiple different layers, and then just the place that we're standing in right now. The yacht club here, and the project that they've raised, like over $10 million privately to kind of finish the restoration here and add more slips and a bulkhead and everything else, and trying to help find ways to get those funds prioritized so that we can finish critical projects that we started, where everyone like in this room or privately kind of put in 90% of the work. So those are things I'm interested in.
Thank you.
Can I touch on one thing that
Please.
Travis mentioned earlier? And that, with the lawsuit of Wahkiakum County, and for our educators, it's what the lawsuit is that it's the school district there saying that part of McCleary involves buildings, and I can understand why they make the argument, but let me give you the other side of that equation. If they prevail in court and that the state is responsible for school building construction, you'll never see another community project the capital budget cannot afford it, and it'll be all school construction. And I'm not saying we shouldn't play a part in it. I believe we should. And as Travis said, we need to reform the funding that we do for and the participation for school construction. Absolutely, it needs to be reformed. It's a horrible bureaucratic method. I think we should just cut a check and get rid of the paperwork and give 10% back and call it good. But instead, you're forced to hire an administrator to conform with the state formula, and you spend 6 figures doing that. It's ridiculous. But let's pay attention to this lawsuit. It is McCleary 2.0, and if they prevail, it'll be a devastating blow to any other community project.
Yeah, and I just want to add, when I was mentioning that I think the right way to go is to try to fix it within the current system that we have, to try to provide relief and get ahead, kind of like what Drew was saying, get ahead of that, because he's right. I mean, that's going to be a devastating line item if Wahkiakum goes through. And so, but the problem still exists in our rural communities, and so that's why I'm trying to look towards some alternatives that maybe we can fix some of that now and kind of get going. And as we go into the future, things don't get any cheaper. It's just going to get more and more expensive, and with workforce shortages like we have, it makes construction really hard, and you get project variances. Sorry, I probably shouldn't go that deep into it, but
Quite all right.
that's the project manager in me. But you get project variances, and then you have to redo contracts and permits and everything else, and it gets to be way more expensive than you thought, which means it's more expensive for the taxpayer as well.
So Representative Couture, I'll keep you standing. I'll do one last question before we kick it over to Q&A, and that is to ask, how can the business community, business owners, nonprofits, community stakeholders, and partners engage with you and our delegation to move things forward for our community, but also to help you in your position at the Capitol?
Yeah, I think Drew kind of touched on it at the beginning that, when the session was virtual, it was hard for everybody, because even if the session was virtual, then everyone was kind of siloed in their homes and kind of distancing and other things. But you could feel the difference having to walk in and have to have face-to-face conversations with people. And so, I would challenge you to don't think we're like some far-off, distant thing. Like, come to the Capitol, schedule meetings, come testify on some of the bills, and come listen in on some of the committees. And if you can't do that, there's always TVW, right? But like, go and be engaged now, because it's totally available to be engaged. Go down there and be engaged in your government, be engaged with us. If you come to visit me, then you're lucky, because Dan is like literally the next door to the left. So you get a one-stop shop. If you go to Drew's office, you got to do some driving, but because they're tearing down his building to rebuild it, and so he's in a different building now. Yeah, just come be engaged with us. I think we're all pretty friendly people. We want to work with you. We want to see you. Don't be afraid. If you can't do that, email us, call us. I'm just getting my phone today, so I don't know what that number is, but it'll all be on the state website soon. And just come and engage with us or set up a meeting. I mean, the doors are open for engagement now, as where they weren't in the last couple of years.
Senator MacEwen, anything to add?
I think that's a pretty good summation of it. One thing I would say, all of us are probably involved in other organizations, and especially ones that are at a state level or even national level, and they'll send you, legislative advocacy alert or something along those lines, and you just plug in your name, boom, it sends an auto email. We don't pay attention to those because you get like 800 of them. Okay, if you want a response, send a personal email, and your odds go up about 99% on us actually seeing it. So that'd be one word of advice there. But when you're from this community, call us. You know how to get a hold of us, and if you don't, reach out through the chamber. We're happy to engage.
Thank you. So it is now time for our community question and answer session. So as a reminder, these should be questions, not comments, and kindly limit the topics to any business or community development related topics. So is there anyone in the crowd that would like to ask a question of our legislators? Ross?
I got word that I'm Ross Gallagher, former county commissioner. The governor wants to build houses. And do you support that initiative that he wants to do? It's $1 billion, but it makes veterans houses for everybody. and is a boon to the construction industry, which hires people across the state. So is that a favorable proposal from the government?
But yeah, the proposal's $4 billion, and to do it outside of our normal bonding capacity, so we're going to be paying interest on it, which adds another, over the life of those bonds, adds another couple $2 billion. Do I support more housing? Absolutely. But let's look at why is it so darn expensive? Okay, because throwing more money at it and not solving the problem doesn't solve it. We have an energy code council, or a building code council, excuse me, that is out of touch, that has imposed continuous energy code items that make no sense, that in most times are impractical to even get to. We have a GMA Act that was passed when the state's population was 4 million. Today it's pushing 8 million, and we've done nothing to reform it. And in a lot of rural areas, you can't put more than one house on 5 acres, and we wonder why housing's expensive. We add in energy code issues that, again, are not practical, do very little on the savings side, but cost a lot of money, and we wonder why it's more expensive. When we continue to do these things and say, oh, it's not affordable, but do nothing to address the root causes, and until we do that, until we have that honest conversation of why it's so darn expensive, we're not going to solve the problem. And building let's look at the amount of money in the 10 years that I've been there that's gone into the Housing Trust Fund. It's in the billions of dollars, double digits. How many houses could you actually build for that as opposed to what has been done? So I have an issue with that, and if we want to have an honest conversation about the cost of housing, let's have it. And let's stop appointing people to the Building Code Council that have not a clue what they're doing. The governor got sued over this because he appointed people, there's a very specific people that have to be appointed or that come from certain backgrounds, and he went around that, he got sued over it and lost. And you can't continue to put forward an agenda that doesn't recognize how to build cost affordable homes and then turn around and say we have a problem but do nothing to solve it. So I support more housing, absolutely, but not with the method the governor's proposed, because he's just throwing more money without addressing the problem.
Yeah, and I certainly agree with that. And like I said, housing is going to be an issue. I think everyone, regardless of which side of the aisle you land on, wants and understands the need for more housing. But sometimes that word housing is a little tricky. What does that mean? What kind of housing are we talking about? We need housing of all different levels in this state. And so one of my first committees I sat in on was local government, and they were talking about the need for more housing, and if we kind of threw the kitchen sink at it, it still might not be enough for what we need in this state. And that all options should be on the table. And we asked the question, well, what about allowing us to build outside of our UGAs? Well, not that option. And so Drew is right. I mean, Growth Management Act is hurting us, especially in that housing arena. But if you really want to look at all the options, well, you have to look at all the options. And you can't just throw good money after bad. You have to fix a system, or else you're just lighting your money on fire and throwing it into a black hole, right? Because things are, especially with the economy nationally as it is, things are, like I said, they're more expensive with inflation and everything else. We have to find ways to smartly reduce the cost. The private industry, the builders, the construction industry, they know how to make affordable housing, and they're telling the government, I need this changed in the law or in the building council or whatever to be able to make this affordable housing. But the problem in Olympia has been the same problem for years now. No one is listening to the experts. And we've seen that in many different ways, whether it be public safety or other things. And they just think that we'll just continue throwing money and increase our budgets every year until finally one day we have a $150 billion budget. It's totally unsustainable. And that's not how we would operate at home with our budgets. And so, of course, like Drew, I want to build more housing too, but we can't, cut off our nose to spite our face.
Any other questions? Mayor Erica Nisko?
Hi, I have a question about, is there any talk about eliminating the 10-year time frame on the transmission benefit district? Frankly, it is the only way that we have matching funds for other state projects that they help us with, or even pave roads. and it doesn't cost the state anything to just eliminate the 10-year time frame.
Off the top of my head, I don't believe there is any discussion on that. That's the short answer to it. I hear you, but I'm not aware of any discussion on that.
It's an easy fix.
Yeah.
Me neither.
Okay, Wes Martin?
Hi guys, congratulations on winning and good luck at the session. Most of us in here realize that we're having some significant labor challenges within the business community. Most of my clients are, their capacities are strangled by lack of workers, and going back to the housing question, contractors and tradesmen are seeing their workforce's average age go up, into the 40s or 50s even, which show that there's not an influx of younger folks entering into the trades. And being a school board member, I see schools constantly pushing the concept of college, which is good for some people, right? But it's not a one size fits all. My question is, do you guys have any kind of out-of-the-box thinking of how we can kind of bake into our public education system something in order to introduce our students to trades?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, when I ask anybody, like literally anybody, what's the number one issue? It's a workforce shortage. I mean, so it's literally across the board. And I'm glad you asked that, because the very first bill that I signed on to, and I was to allow apprenticeship programs in our schools. So I think that's going to be great. We need more of that, especially in our district where less students tend to go to college and more of them tend to enter right into the workforce. Having apprenticeships in the unions will pay for this program. So that kids can start to learn trades. I think that's going to be a really good first step. More on the workforce shortage. Another thing that there's a lot of things sometimes in campaigns, you get like your theme of like your top 5 things. Everyone asks kind of the iterations of the same issues, the same questions. One thing that I tried to talk about that was rarely talked about was childcare. Everyone knows, or if you don't know, childcare is extremely expensive and kind of hard to find. You might be on a wait list, and what happens is parents or custodial parents or whoever has to stay at home, watch the kids. They can't send their kids to any daycare because there just isn't any, or they can't afford it, right? And so we've made it extremely unaffordable in this state, especially in the last handful of years. And I want those parents to be able to rejoin the workforce. And so in my committee, Children, Youth, and Families, I'm going to be working on solutions for childcare to make, smartly to make daycares more affordable and more abundant so that people have the option of childcare so that they can rejoin the workforce.
Just to add on to that, as Travis alluded to, I think when you look at Running Start, great program. I don't have any issue with it, right? You can graduate college and have an associate's degree and you're halfway done with college. Why the heck can't we do that same thing in the trades? Graduate from college and have your apprenticeship completed or darn close to it, and whether it's welding or whatever else there may be, and to be able to get out there, I think that'd be a huge benefit. Our situation is not unique. I mean, we're seeing this across the nation, right? And a couple of years ago, I was on a delegation trip to Denmark and Sweden, and I've talked about this before, and it was interesting. It was at a power plant in Sweden, and I was talking to the plant manager, and he said the biggest challenge they have is that all their people are book smart, and all the workers they need, they were hiring from the former Eastern Bloc of Europe. That's an issue, folks, when you can't even take care of your own infrastructure in your country. So yeah, it's a huge issue that we need to address, and I think the more we can do on these programs, and the unions have stepped up and are ready to, they want to be part of this, so let's do it, and let's lower the barriers, and part of it's an L&I issue, and frankly, we got to get L&I past the point of always saying no, and how can we make this happen? I mean, what a concept, right? Same thing. I mean, I'll get on a tangent here, but you look at the garbage on our streets or on our highways, right? And we used to have, the prison population would pick it up. That pretty much ended a number of years ago. Why? Because of an L&I cost. I mean, we're already on the hook for their health care. Why are we paying L&I on that labor? There's a number of issues there, but they are a big part of the problem that we've got to address, and it's a cultural issue within that department.
Yeah, and private businesses are wanting to do their part, not just unions as well. And there's that liability issue if with getting kids in. That's kind of an issue as well. But I went with Lisa and did a tour of Sierra Pacific, and I was just kind of amazed. I almost filled out a job application right there. And I think more of our kids need to see that. They need to be up in person and actually physically see it. Maybe there's opportunities where they can get a little bit hands-on, kind of inspire them to. Those are good family wage paying jobs, and they're critical for our community, and those private businesses are doing good things. And so it's not just the unions. That's a good first step, but I think the second step is, kind of erasing some of that liability for private businesses so they can participate in that as well.
Are there any other questions? Larry?
I just read yesterday where Representative Tara Simmons from the 23rd District has proposed House Bill 1024 that would pay prisoners minimum wage. Should we not be charging them room and board if we're going to pay them minimum wage?
Yeah, I don't support that bill. But when it comes to the prison, I'll tell you, we do need to do some things differently. There are some people that certainly need to be in there the rest of their life, right? But 90% of the people that are sent to prison come back to society. We need to set them up for success, but paying a minimum wage while they're incarcerated, I don't believe is the issue. I think the issue is getting them the skills and the training they need and doing that. So I think there's more to the solution than that, and I don't think the taxpayers of the state would appreciate paying that wage.
The taxpayers of this state don't appreciate a lot of what happened.
Fair enough.
Well, that's probably true enough. I think with that, we're going to wrap and turn over to close. If you have anything to add, Travis, and then we'll move to closing
yeah, I
remarks.
think just the next step is that, the prisoners just simply couldn't live on a minimum wage, so we need to raise it. Yeah, that's ridiculous, and most of Representative Simmons' bills are, so I don't expect that to go anywhere.
Well, thank you everyone for your questions. I know that many more will come up throughout this session, and I hope that you will take our delegation at their word and reach out to them, help them in providing testimony, providing feedback, and of course, thank you both for being here. I'd like to give you both an opportunity to make any closing remarks, anything you'd like to share with the group that you haven't already.
No, that I'm probably just a naive freshman, so I'm like all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I'm like, let's go, let's get it going, and then everyone's like, oh, slow your roll, you'll get beaten down soon enough. But no, I'm really excited to go work on all of your behalf and all of the 35th in Mason County, in Olympia. I'm just like raring to go to help all of us, achieve our goals. And so if there's any way I can help, I want to help. I want to be there for you, and I'm just really excited to get it started and do some good things for our community. Thanks.
Yeah, no, and thanks for the opportunity to be here today. And again, just to echo that, don't hesitate to reach out and come down there. It's always nice to have constituents as opposed to lobbyists. No offense to lobbyists in the room.
Sorry.
She's a friend too, so. But no, and to quote, take you behind the scenes and really see the what goes on. So I welcome that to any of you. So again, thank you. Look forward to continue to represent this district and this community and moving our ball forward here. We've got a lot of opportunities, and and I think the weaknesses that we have, we can overcome, and we can make those into our strengths. So look forward to locking arms and moving forward. And thanks for having us today.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. We are so grateful for your willingness to serve our community, and we appreciate your commitment to Mason County. The Chambers and the EDC are committed to working together and with you to move our community forward with you, seizing opportunities, fostering a healthy economy, and a strong community. So at this point, Jennifer Barria, do you have any remarks to make from the EDC? As it should be.
I'm loud enough, so I didn't want my back to anybody. A big thank you to our representatives for being available for us to meet with them. There's a lot of work that the EDC is doing toward readiness of Mason County. We have a lot of our local businesses that are already here struggling to expand because of the lack of available resources, utilities, infrastructure, and are looking outside of Mason County for those opportunities. We have outside businesses looking in at our area. They see some of the amazing things that we have here and they want to be here. But then they look at the property that we have and it needs a substation. And substation parts, if you order them now, are 2.5 years out. So some of that work really does rely on a public-private partnership. And that public entity helping us get our sites ready and our area ready for those growth opportunities, for those workers that we have coming out of our schools and our colleges to be able to have jobs, to come to our area, to stay here, to really help really build up our economic foundation. So I would urge you to reach out to them, but also I would urge the representatives to, if you see something coming where you know it would help to have our voices there, let us know. If it's letting Deidre know at the chamber or Pam or myself, we will let the business community know and we will get people there for you. But you know our issues. We've written them down for you in a nice handy flyer format, but we are here to support the work that you're doing and we want to be there. You guys track a lot of bills and they change names, and just know that we want to be there when you need us there too. So I'll end it with that, but thank you.
Thanks.
I'll just stay right here. I think that we have a great partnership between the chambers, the EDC. We're here for you to, as Jennifer, I'll just mirror that, to be out there and let our businesses know about what we need to be active on. We appreciate that partnership, and I think that especially housing, workforce, us working with the schools, we all are both active at both ends of the county with our high schools and doing job fairs and opportunities for them to learn about trade skills that they can pick up on, and we both have those coming up this year. So let us know what you would like to have, and also I welcome all of you to make sure to let us know what you're looking for so we can drive some of that training into the high schools and hopefully work with them on that. So, yeah, thank you.
As a reminder, we will have the recap of today's event available on masonchamber.com. Thanks to Mason Web TV for being here videoing today. We'll also have copies of those handouts. If you don't pick one up on your way out, they will be available online along with the contact information for our legislators. I did also want to mention that while the Chamber does not normally have a luncheon in January, we are hosting one this month with our local schools, particularly because there have been a lot of questions about the upcoming school levy for the special election in February. So we will have Olympic College, Shelton Schools, Hood Canal, and Pioneer speaking at our January luncheon. So if you'd like more information about that, please let us know. Again, we know that workforce development and giving this talent pipeline to workforce is really critical, and so thank you, all of you, for being engaged in that process. Other than that, I just want to once again thank our legislators, thank our hosts today, and our presenting partners for being here. Thank all of you for your time. Have a great rest of your week. Take care and drive safe.